I'm delighted to welcome you all here today to our annual investor conference, which has become, by default, triannual. I think the last time that we were all able to get together was 2019, and gosh, what a lot has happened in the world since then. A lot has happened in the space in which we invest, and actually a lot has also happened at WHEB. I was looking back at the 2019 slides. There was a company then of 9 people, I think had just gone over the 300 million mark. And WHEB has grown quite considerably since then, not just in client assets, but also in its resources and its operations and its people. So I'm one of the newbies. I'm Jayne Sutcliffe. My background is I spent 35 years in the investment management industry, all of which was in emerging markets. Starting from when the Tigers of Asia emerged in the 1980s, through to the opening up of the East European markets after privatization in the 90s, and then the expansion of some of the Middle Eastern and African markets after that. I co-founded a boutique investment firm in 2000 and took that through a London listing and eventually a sale to a larger Canadian investor in 2018. At which point I retired and decided I was finished with the investment management industry. I was going to focus on other things, particularly a couple of charities which help disadvantaged children get into both education and music. So when WHEB asked to talk to me, I was quite surprised. My own sort of experience with ESG had been to try and bring this into the investment process at my old firm, which was met with varying degrees of enthusiasm and acceptance. Everything from a recognition that this was a good way to invest that will make you a better investor, through to people who sort of thought that the ESG team were the thought police, and even worse than compliance, who were there to basically stop you investing in other things. At best, it comes out as a screen that at some point enables you to get rid of the worst companies from an ESG score and look at the best of the ones that you've already chosen. So I knew that there was very little that WHEB could gain from me in terms of its investment strategy. I was intrigued to talk to them because it was immediately apparent that this was a team who were incredibly committed to the asset class. They had devoted many years investing in this at a time when, for most people, it was esoteric and marginal, and certainly not fashionable. And on that basis, I decided to talk to them. And I was really pleased to see that by the time I talked to them, their business had started to grow, and their patience was paying off. So I love growing boutique businesses, and on that basis decided this was something, a definite sort of almost like a special situation that I would like to think about being involved in. As we talked, I realized that there was an enormous sort of drive and ambition from the team at WHEB to develop their business and to grow their business and to use the additional revenues that they were able to generate now after all those years to really build an infrastructure to enable them to grow their business and to serve the client base. So what you'll see in the last 3 years is an increase. First of all, the most visible is probably the investment team. And you will hear from members of our investment team who will be talking to you today. But also to add resources in operational support and to add a really important resource in risk and attribution. And I would say we've done all of this with a very healthy gender balance. I quickly realized that what you have at WHEB is something very different to a mainstream company's view of ESG. Impact is the absolute DNA at WHEB. It's like, you remember those sticks of rock you used to buy that you chop them at any point and it says Brighton or wherever you happen to be. And DNA is at the heart of everything that WHEB does. We call our impact analysis the third dimension of investing, and I do encourage you to look at the information on the impact engine on our website. This isn't about screening. Every member, there isn't a separate department here looking at this. Every member of the team is driven by finding companies that do amazing things to meet global challenges to invest in. And that importance of impact is completely undiluted by other factors in our investment selections. There's also a huge sense of responsibility at WHEB for communicating our our views, which we think are important, and also for stewardship, for engaging. We spend a lot of time thinking and talking, both amongst ourselves and with our advisory board, about ways in which we can also have impact by talking to the companies that we invest in, and engaging and influencing them. There's also a very educational aspect at WHEB. We have an enormous amount of expertise and experience, and we like to share that, not just for growing the business, though that is a great response if that's the case, but really because we think these are important views and important information that need to be shared. I said that when WHEB started, and for many years, investing in impact was regarded as esoteric. Over the last 3 years, there's clearly been an enormous change in the way people think about how they invest their money, how they spend their money. On my journey here today, I bought my sustainable coffee with a sustainable donut. I looked in the jeweller's shop who are selling sustainable jewellery, and my local newsagent has adapted to the weather by putting up a sign saying that they are selling sustainable umbrellas. But with this change of people wanting to invest their money in a better way and wanting to hold people who look after their money accountable for how they invest, there are clearly a much greater selection of people who've come to this investment area, which we regard as a good thing. But in my opinion, for the expertise, the experience, the commitment and the integrity of process, I think that the team at WHEB are unparalleled. During the day, we have what we hope is a really interesting programme of events, both hearing from some of our team members, also from some of our investment companies, and an opportunity to interrogate in a Q&A session at the end. Also at the end of the day, we are staying open, not just for drinks, but for the football, which you're very welcome to stay for. I mentioned earlier that something I admired about WHEB was the fact that I think it's a good trait to always remain with your core beliefs, even in the face of sometimes being unpopular, even ridicule. And with that, I'd just like to ask, are there any other Wales supporters here today? Yes, it'll be lonely, but we'll be there. With that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker for the day, Dr. Gabriella Odu, who really needs no introduction from me. I'm sure many of you here have both read her books, her articles. She has decades of experience as a climate expert and scientist. I would highly recommend her TED Talk on carbon. And I believe amongst everything else you do, Gabrielle, you are a self-confessed ice addict who has also been to the poles, both poles several times, swum with whales and barracudas. I'm going to put a slide up before Gabriella comes here. This is the sort of the disclaimer. If this was Strictly or The Jungle, you'd have Anton Deck running on and reading it at speed. But I am advised that all I do need to do is make sure that it's here long enough and in big enough script that you can see it and be aware of it during the day. So with that, I will hand on to Gabrielle, and I hope you have a very interesting afternoon. Thank you.